The garden was a symphony of roses and whispers, the air thick with the scent of jasmine and judgment. Ethan stood at the edge of the crowd, heart pounding like a war drum, his old Converse sneakers sinking into the manicured grass. He wasn't supposed to be here, not at this wedding. Not in this life, but the truth had a way of clawing its way out. And Ethan was its reluctant messenger. It was a perfect June day in suburban Connecticut, the kind where the sky seemed to promise forever. The crowd, dressed in pastels and pressed suits, buzzed with anticipation as Emily, radiant in white, stood beside her groom. Nathan, with his sharp jawline and easy charm, was the hometown hero star quarterback turned corporate rising star. Everyone loved Nathan. Everyone, it seemed, except Ethan, who knew a different version of him. Ethan's presence was a disruption, a ripple in the polished surface of the day. He was 28, lanky, with tousled brown hair and hazel eyes that held too much history. The crowd noticed him immediately, his faded blazer, the nervous way he clutched a crumpled letter. Whispers turned to chuckles. "Who's the gay weirdo?" Someone muttered, loud enough to sting. Ethan's cheeks burned, but he didn't turn back. He couldn't. Not after everything. 2 years ago, Ethan and Nathan had been inseparable. Late nights in Nathan's cramped apartment, sharing cheap beer and dreams of a life less ordinary. Nathan, with his magnetic smile, had promised Ethan the world, whispered words of love in the dark, stolen kisses behind closed doors. But promises, Ethan learned, were fragile things. Nathan's family, old money conservatives with expectations heavier than their bank accounts, had other plans. Emily, sweet and oblivious, was their vision of Nathan's future. Ethan was just a phase, a secret to be buried. The officiant's voice droned on, but Ethan barely heard it. His eyes locked on Nathan, who stood rigid, his gaze flickering toward Ethan for a split second before darting away. That glance was enough. It was fear, guilt, and something else, something that made Ethan's chest ache. He stepped forward, the crowd's laughter growing sharper, like knives. "Excuse me," he said, his voice trembling but clear. The music stopped. Heads turned. Emily's smile faltered. "Ethan, don't," Nathan said under his breath, his voice barely audible over the rustle of silk dresses and uncomfortable coughs. But Ethan was done hiding. He pulled the letter from his pocket, its edges worn from months of being carried, reread, and wept over. "I'm not here to ruin anything," Ethan said, louder now, addressing the crowd. "I just need him to hear this. Just once." The letter was a confession, a plea, a map of their shared past. Ethan's voice cracked as he began to read, each word a step toward a truth he'd buried for too long. "Nathan, you told me I was your home, that no one else could ever know you like I did." The crowd gasped, some in shock, others in disdain. Emily's hand flew to her mouth, her eyes searching Nathan's face for answers he wasn't giving. Nathan's parents stood, their faces a storm of fury and embarrassment. "Get him out of here," his father barked. But Ethan kept reading, his voice growing steadier. He spoke of nights spent dreaming of a future where they didn't have to hide, where love wasn't a scandal. He spoke of the day Nathan walked away, choosing a life that fit his family's mold over the one that made his heart race. The garden felt smaller now, the air heavier. Ethan's words hung like fog, impossible to ignore. He didn't look at the crowd, didn't care about their judgment. This was for Nathan, for the boy who'd once held his hand under a starlit sky and promised forever. "I'm not asking you to choose me," Ethan finished, folding the letter. "I'm asking you to choose yourself." Silence. Then, chaos. Nathan's mother was crying, his father shouting for security. Emily stepped back, her bouquet trembling in her hands. And Nathan just stood there, his face a battlefield of emotions Ethan couldn't fully read. The crowd's laughter had died, replaced by a tense, electric hush. Ethan turned to leave, his heart a bruise. But he'd done what he came to do. He'd spoken his truth. But then, 9 minutes after Ethan had crashed the wedding, Nathan grabbed the microphone. Nathan's hand shook as he gripped the microphone, the metal cool against his sweating palm. The crowd's eyes bore into him, a sea of expectation and confusion. Ethan froze mid-step, his back still turned, as if afraid to believe Nathan might actually speak. "Ladies and gentlemen," Nathan began, his voice hoarse, cracking under the weight of the moment. He cleared his throat, glancing at Emily, whose wide eyes begged for an explanation. "I need to say something." The words felt like stones, heavy and unyielding. But he couldn't stop now. Not after Ethan's letter. Not after those words had ripped open a truth he'd spent years burying. Nathan was 29, broad-shouldered, with the kind of charm that made people forgive his flaws. He'd always been the golden boy quarterback, prom king, the son who carried his family's name like a crown. But crowns were heavy, and Nathan had been wearing his for too long. He looked at Ethan now, standing alone at the edge of the garden, and saw the boy he'd loved in secret, the one who'd made him feel alive in ways Emily never could. "I'm sorry," Nathan said, his voice steadier now, though it trembled with something raw. "I'm sorry to Emily, to my family, to all of you." He paused, his gaze locking on Ethan's back. "But most of all, I'm sorry to him." The crowd murmured, a low hum of shock and curiosity. Emily's bouquet fell to the ground, petals scattering like broken promises. Nathan's mind raced back to their last night together. 2 years ago. Ethan's apartment. The glow of a single lamp casting shadows on the walls. They'd fought not with anger, but with the quiet desperation of two people who knew their time was running out. "You don't have to do this," Ethan had said, his voice breaking. "You don't have to be what they want." But Nathan had walked away, choosing the path of least resistance, the one that led to Emily and this wedding day. Now, standing before the crowd, Nathan felt the weight of that choice. "Ethan's right," he said, the microphone amplifying his confession. "I've been lying. To all of you. To myself." He laughed, a bitter sound. "I thought I could do this, marry Emily. Live the life everyone expected. But I can't. Not anymore." Emily's face crumpled, and Nathan's heart twisted. She was kind, smart, everything anyone could want. But she wasn't Ethan. "Emily, you deserve someone who can love you fully," he said, his voice soft but firm. "And that's not me." She nodded, tears streaming, and stepped away, her mother rushing to her side. The crowd was a storm now. Gasps, whispers, a few angry shouts from Nathan's relatives. His father's face was a mask of rage, his mother's of disbelief. But Nathan didn't care. For the first time in years, he felt like he could breathe. He stepped down from the altar, the microphone still in his hand, and walked toward Ethan. Ethan turned, his eyes wide, searching Nathan's face for truth. "What are you doing?" he whispered, his voice barely audible. Nathan didn't answer with words. He dropped the microphone, letting it thud against the grass, and pulled Ethan into a hug. It wasn't romantic, not yet, just a desperate, grounding embrace. The kind that said, "I'm here, and I'm not running anymore." The crowd's noise faded into the background. For a moment, it was just them two men who'd loved and lost and found each other again in the wreckage of a wedding that was never meant to be. Ethan's arms tightened around Nathan, and for the first time that day, he didn't feel like an outsider. But the world wasn't done with them yet. Nathan's father stormed forward, his voice booming. This is a disgrace. You're throwing your life away for what? For him. He pointed at Ethan, his finger trembling with fury. The crowd parted, some nodding in agreement, others looking away, uncomfortable with the rawness of it all. Nathan pulled back, keeping one hand on Ethan's shoulder. Dad, I'm not throwing anything away, he said, his voice calm but unyielding. I'm choosing my life. For once. It's mine. Ethan's eyes glistened, a mix of pride and fear. He knew what this moment cost. Nathan knew it might cost them both. As security approached, urged on by Nathan's father, Ethan took a step back. You don't have to do this, he said, echoing their past. Not for me. But Nathan shook his head, a small smile breaking through. I'm doing it for me, he said. And for us. The garden felt like a battlefield now, the air charged with tension and unspoken truths. Nathan stood firm, his hand still on Ethan's shoulder. As security closed in, Ethan's heart raced, his mind a whirlwind of hope and dread. He'd come to speak his truth, not to tear Nathan's world apart, but it was happening anyway. Get out. Both of you. Nathan's father bellowed, his face red with fury. The crowd was a mixed chorus. Some whispered in support, others in condemnation. Ethan caught snippets of their words. Disgrace. Poor Emily. He's brave. It was a cacophony of judgment. But Nathan's grip on him was steady, an anchor in the storm. Ethan glanced at Emily, who stood with her mother, her face pale but composed. She met his eyes, and for a moment, he saw not anger but understanding. She nodded slightly, as if to say, I get it. I'll be okay. Ethan's guilt softened, but only a little. He hadn't meant to hurt her. But love, he realized, was messy, a collision of hearts that left bruises. Dad, stop, Nathan said, his voice cutting through the chaos. This isn't about you or the family name. This is about me. His father scoffed, but Nathan pressed on. I've spent my whole life trying to be what you wanted. The perfect son. The perfect man. But I'm not that guy. I never was. The security guards hesitated, unsure whether to follow the father's orders or let the moment play out. Nathan's mother stepped forward, her eyes wet with tears. Nathan, please, she said, her voice softer than her husband's. Think about what you're doing. You're throwing away everything we've built for you. Nathan's jaw tightened. You built it, Mom. Not me. He turned to Ethan, his expression softening. Ethan showed me what it means to be honest. To be myself. I can't go back to pretending. Ethan's throat tightened. He wanted to believe Nathan's words. Wanted to trust that this wasn't just a moment of rebellion. But years of heartbreak had taught him caution. Nathan, he said quietly, this is bigger than us. Your family. Your future theory, all watching. I know, Nathan replied, his voice low but fierce. And I'm done hiding. He turned back to the crowd, raising his voice. I'm gay. I've always been gay. And I loved Ethan. I still do. The words landed like a thunderclap, silencing the garden. Even Nathan's father fell quiet, his anger momentarily stunned. Ethan's breath caught. He dreamed of hearing those words. But not like this, not in front of a crowd. Not with so much at stake. He reached for Nathan's hand, their fingers brushing. A small act of defiance against the weight of the world. The crowd's reaction was a slow burn. Some clapped tentatively. Others turned away. But a few, mostly younger guests, stepped closer, their faces lit with quiet support. Nathan's father wasn't done. You're no son of mine. He spat, his words venomous. You think you can just walk away from this family? From everything we've given you. Nathan's mother grabbed her husband's arm, pleading silently. But he shook her off. I don't want to walk away, Nathan said, his voice breaking. But if you can't accept me, then I have to. He squeezed Ethan's hand. A promise in the gesture. Let's go, he whispered. And Ethan nodded, his heart pounding with a mix of fear and hope. They started to walk away, the crowd parting like a reluctant sea. But Emily's voice stopped them. Wait, she called, stepping forward. Her dress trailed in the grass, her eyes red but resolute. Nathan, I don't hate you. I wish you'd told me sooner. She looked at Ethan, her smile sad but genuine. Take care of him. Okay. Ethan nodded, unable to speak. Emily turned back to the crowd, her voice steady. Let them go. They're not the ones who need to explain themselves. It was a small act of grace, but it shifted the air, softening the crowd's edge. As they reached the garden's edge, Nathan's father called out one last time. You'll regret this. Nathan, you'll be nothing without us. Nathan didn't turn back. He kept walking, Ethan at his side, their hands still clasped. The world felt vast and terrifying, but for the first time, it also felt possible. The gravel crunched under their feet as Nathan and Ethan left the garden, the wedding's chaos fading behind them. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows, and Ethan's pulse still raced, his mind replaying Nathan's words. I loved Ethan. I still do. They were free. But freedom, Ethan knew, came with a price. They reached Nathan's car, a sleek black sedan parked haphazardly on the street. Nathan leaned against it, his shoulders slumping as the adrenaline drained away. I didn't plan for this, he said, his voice raw. I thought I could go through with it. Marry Emily. Keep everyone happy. But then you showed up. Ethan's laugh was bitter. Yeah. The gay weirdo crashing your perfect day. Sorry about that. He meant it as a joke. But the words stung, echoing the crowd's taunts. Nathan's eyes softened, and he reached for Ethan's hand again, his touch warm and steady. Don't, Nathan said. Don't call yourself that. You're the bravest person I know. He paused, his thumb brushing over Ethan's knuckles. I meant what I said back there. I love you. I never stopped. Ethan wanted to believe him, but doubt was a stubborn guest. Then why did you leave? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. 2 years. Nathan, you didn't call, didn't text. You let me think I was nothing. Nathan's face crumpled, guilt etching lines where his charm usually lived. I was a coward, he admitted. My parents, they made it clear what my life had to be. The job, the marriage, the legacy. I thought I could do it. Thought I could bury what I felt for you. But I was wrong. Ethan pulled his hand away, needing space to think. The street was quiet, the distant hum of the wedding now just a memory. He remembered the nights he'd spent alone, replaying Nathan's promises, wondering what he'd done wrong. I waited for you, Ethan said, his voice thick. I kept that stupid letter, hoping you'd come back. And now what? You blow up your life, and I'm supposed to just trust you. Nathan stepped closer, his eyes pleading. I don't expect you to trust me yet, but I'm here now, and I'm not running anymore. Let me prove it. His voice was earnest, stripped of the polish he'd worn for the crowd. It was the Nathan Ethan had fallen for, the one who'd laughed at his bad jokes, who'd held him through nightmares. Before Ethan could respond, a car screeched to a stop beside them. Nathan's younger sister, Lily, jumped out, her bridesmaid dress slightly askew. She was 22, with Nathan's dark hair and a fire in her eyes that her family rarely saw. You idiots, she said, grinning. You really know how to make an exit. Nathan blinked, surprised. Lily, what are you doing here? Saving your ass, she said, tossing him a duffel bag. I packed some of your stuff from the house. Figured you wouldn't want to go back there anytime soon. She glanced at Ethan, her smile softening. You must be Ethan. Heard a lot about you, none of it from him. Of course. He's an idiot. But he's my brother. Ethan managed a small smile, warmed by her unexpected allyship. Thanks, he said, unsure what else to say. Lily's presence felt like a lifeline, a sign that not everyone in Nathan's world was against them. Dad's losing it, Lily continued, her tone serious now. He's talking about cutting you off. Nathan, no trust fund, no job at the firm. You sure about this? Her eyes searched her brother's face. Not judging, just checking. Nathan nodded, his jaw set. I'm sure. I can't live their life anymore. He looked at Ethan, his expression softening. I want to build something real. With you, if you'll let me. Ethan's heart wavered, caught between hope and fear. He wanted to say yes, to leap into this new possibility. But the scars of the past held him back. We need time, he said finally. It's a lot. Nathan nodded, accepting the answer. Time, he agreed. I've got plenty of that now. Lily rolled her eyes but smiled, tossing her car keys in the air. Come on, you two. Let's get out of here before Dad sends the cavalry. They piled into Lily's car, the weight of the day settling into a quiet, fragile hope. As they drove away, Ethan glanced at Nathan, wondering if love could be enough to rebuild what fear had torn apart. Lily's car hummed along the highway, the Connecticut countryside blurring into streaks of green and gold. Ethan sat in the back seat, staring out the window, his mind a tangle of emotions. Nathan's confession at the wedding had been a lightning strike, brilliant, dangerous, and impossible to ignore. But now, in the quiet of the car, doubt crept in. Could they really start over? Nathan sat in the front, glancing back at Ethan every few minutes, his eyes searching for something, forgiveness, maybe, or a sign that Ethan wasn't about to bolt. Lily, ever the peacemaker, kept the mood light, her chatter filling the silence. So, where are we going? She asked, her voice bright but pointed. Because I'm not driving you two to Narnia. Nathan laughed, a sound Ethan hadn't heard in years, and it stirred something warm in his chest. I don't know, Nathan admitted. Somewhere new. Somewhere we can figure this out. He looked at Ethan again, his expression earnest. If that's okay with you. Ethan nodded, but his thoughts were elsewhere. He remembered the first time he'd met Nathan, at a dive bar near Yale. Nathan had been a senior, Ethan a junior, and their connection had been instant, a spark that felt like fate. They'd spent months sneaking around, stealing moments in dark corners, always hiding from Nathan's world. Now, that world was crumbling, and Ethan wasn't sure he was ready to pick up the pieces. Lily pulled into a gas station, the neon lights casting a harsh glow over the car. I need snacks, she declared, hopping out. You two need to talk. Don't screw this up. She winked at Ethan before disappearing into the store, leaving them alone. The silence was heavy, broken only by the distant hum of traffic. Nathan turned in his seat, facing Ethan fully. I know I hurt you, he said, his voice low. I know I don't deserve a second chance, but I'm asking for one anyway. Not because I think it's easy, but because I think it's worth it. Ethan's throat tightened. He wanted to be angry, to hold on to the pain that had kept him safe for 2 years. But Nathan's eyes, raw and unguarded, chipped away at his defenses. I don't know if I can trust you, Ethan said finally. You broke me. Nathan. You walked away like I was nothing. Nathan flinched, but he didn't look away. You were never nothing. You were everything. I was just too scared to admit it. He reached out, hesitating, then let his hand fall. I'm not that guy anymore. I want to be better for you. For me. Ethan's heart ached, torn between the past and the possibility of a future. He thought of the letter, the one he'd poured his soul into, and how Nathan had heard it, really heard it, for the first time today. Okay, Ethan said softly, but it's not going to be easy. We've got a lot to figure out. Nathan's face lit up, a cautious hope in his smile. I know, but we'll do it together. He reached for Ethan's hand, and this time, Ethan didn't pull away. Their fingers intertwined, a small promise in a world full of uncertainty. Lily returned, tossing a bag of chips into the back seat. You two done being dramatic? She teased, sliding into the driver's seat. Because I found a motel a few miles up the road. Cheap, clean, and far enough from Dad's wrath. They drove on, the motel's neon sign soon looming in the distance. It was a small, unassuming place, the kind that promised anonymity. As they checked in, Ethan felt the weight of the day settle into his bones. He and Nathan were given a room with 2 beds, a silent acknowledgement that they weren't quite there yet. That night, as they lay in their separate beds, Ethan stared at the ceiling, listening to Nathan's steady breathing. The future was uncertain. Nathan's family, his career, their relationship, but for the first time in years, Ethan felt a spark of hope. Maybe, just maybe, they could build something real. But outside, the world was still turning. Nathan's father wasn't one to let go easily, and Ethan knew the storm was far from over. The motel room smelled faintly of stale coffee and cheap air freshener. But to Ethan, it was a sanctuary. He woke to the sound of Nathan's soft snoring, a reminder that last night hadn't been a dream. They were here, together, on the edge of something new and terrifying. Nathan stirred, blinking awake, his hair a mess of dark curls. Morning, he mumbled, his voice thick with sleep. Ethan smiled despite himself, the familiarity of Nathan's morning gruffness tugging at his heart. Morning, he replied, sitting up. You still sure about this? Nathan's eyes met his, steady and clear. More than ever. He swung his legs over the side of the bed, stretching. But we need a plan. My dad's not going to let this go, and I'm pretty sure I'm unemployed now. Ethan nodded, the reality of their situation sinking in. Nathan's family owned half the commercial real estate in their small Connecticut town, and his father's influence stretched far beyond. Walking away meant more than losing a trust fund. It meant starting from scratch. What about your job? Ethan asked. The firm's your dad's. Will they keep you on? Nathan's laugh was dry. Not a chance. I was only there because of him. But you know what? I'm okay with that. I hated that job. He leaned forward, his elbows on his knees. I want to do something that matters. Something real. Ethan raised an eyebrow. Like what? You're not exactly this starving artist type. Nathan grinned, a spark of his old charm returning. Maybe not. But I've got savings enough to get us started somewhere new. What about you? You still doing graphic design? Ethan shrugged. Freelance. Mostly. It's not much. But it's mine. He'd spent the last 2 years building a small client base, working late nights to avoid thinking about Nathan. It wasn't glamorous, but it was freedom. We could, I don't know, figure something out together. If you're serious. I am, Nathan said, his voice firm. But first, we need to get out of Connecticut. Somewhere my dad's reach doesn't extend. He hesitated, then added, "What about Boston? It's close enough to start over. Far enough to breathe." Ethan considered it. Boston was vibrant, diverse, a place where they could blend in and build something new. "Okay," he said. "Boston. But we're not running forever. Nathan, we faced this together." Their conversation was interrupted by a sharp knock on the door. Lily's voice called through, muffled but urgent. "Guys, open up. We've got a problem." Ethan's stomach dropped as he opened the door to find Lily, her face pale, holding her phone. "Dad's already started," she said, showing them a text from their father. "Tell your brother he's cut off. No money. No house. Nothing. He's made his choice." Nathan's face hardened, but he didn't flinch. "Let him," he said. "I don't need his money." Lily raised an eyebrow, skeptical but impressed. Bold words. "Big brother. But you're gonna need more than courage." He's talking to his lawyer friends. They're digging into Ethan's past, too. Ethan's blood ran cold. "Me? Why?" Lily sighed, sitting on the edge of Nathan's bed. "Because Dad plays dirty. He thinks he can scare you off, make you look like the bad guy. He's got people looking for anything: arrests, debts, anything to discredit you." Ethan's mind raced. His past wasn't spotless, whose was? A few unpaid parking tickets, a rough patch after college when he'd couch surfed for months. Nothing major. But in the hands of Nathan's father, it could become a weapon. "Let him try," Ethan said, his voice steadier than he felt. "I'm not hiding anything." Nathan reached for his hand, squeezing it. "We'll handle it," he said. "Together." Lily smirked, breaking the tension. "You two are disgustingly cute. Now pack up. We're hitting the road before Dad's goons show up." They left the motel, piling into Lily's car with their meager belongings. The drive to Boston was quiet, each of them lost in thought. Ethan watched the scenery change, the small towns giving way to city lights. He felt Nathan's hand brush his, a silent promise that they were in this together, no matter what came next. Boston welcomed them with a drizzle that painted the streets in shades of gray. They found a small apartment in the South End, a cramped but cozy space with creaky floors and a view of a brick wall. It wasn't much, but to Ethan, it felt like a beginning. Nathan, true to his word, started looking for work, anything that didn't carry his father's name. Days turned into weeks, and they settled into a rhythm. Ethan took on more freelance projects, his laptop glowing late into the night. Nathan landed a job at a nonprofit, helping at-risk youth, a far cry from the corporate world he'd left behind. It paid less, but the light in his eyes when he talked about it made Ethan's heart swell. Still, the shadow of Nathan's father loomed. One evening, as they sat on their thrift store couch, a letter arrived hand-delivered. No return address. Ethan's stomach churned as Nathan opened it. Inside was a single page, typed and cold, a list of Ethan's transgressions, from minor debts to a long-ago bar fight he'd barely been involved in. At the bottom, a note in Nathan's father's handwriting: "Leave my son, or this goes public." Nathan's face darkened as he read it. "He thinks he can control me," he said, crumpling the paper. "He's wrong." Ethan took the letter, smoothing it out. "He's not just coming for you," he said. "He's coming for me, too. If this gets out, my clients could drop me." Nathan's eyes blazed. "Then we fight back. We don't run." He pulled Ethan close, his voice fierce. "I'm not losing you again." Ethan nodded, but fear gnawed at him. Nathan's father had resources they couldn't match: lawyers, connections, a vendetta that wouldn't quit. Lily, who'd stayed in touch, arrived one weekend with a plan. You need to go public first, she said, sipping coffee at their tiny kitchen table. Tell your story before he can twist it. People love a good love story, especially one that sticks it to a bigot. She grinned, but her eyes were serious. I've got friends in media. Small outlets. But they're scrappy. They'll listen. Ethan hesitated. Going public meant exposing their lives, their love, to scrutiny. But Nathan was all in. Let's do it, he said. No more hiding. They spent the next week preparing, with Lily's help, crafting a story that was raw and honest. Ethan wrote about their past, their pain, and the hope they were building. Nathan spoke about breaking free from his family's expectations, choosing love over legacy. The article went live on a local blog, then spread like wildfire. Comments poured in, some hateful, but many supportive, especially from younger readers who saw themselves in Ethan and Nathan's struggle. The story reached Emily, who sent a quiet message of support. I'm rooting for you both. It was a small gesture, but it meant the world. Nathan's father, predictably, retaliated. A smear piece appeared in a conservative outlet, painting Ethan as a troublemaker and Nathan as a confused son led astray. But the tide was turning. The nonprofit Nathan worked for issued a statement of support, and Ethan's clients, to his surprise, stuck by him, moved by his honesty. One night, as they lay in bed, Nathan traced circles on Ethan's hand. We're doing it, he whispered. We're building something real. Ethan smiled, his heart lighter than it had been in years. Yeah, he said. We are. But the fight wasn't over. Nathan's father had one last card to play, and it would test their love in ways they hadn't imagined. Winter settled over Boston, blanketing the city in snow and quiet. Ethan and Nathan's apartment, once bare, now held traces of their life, together photos on the fridge, a shared bookshelf, a quilt from Lily. They were building something, piece by fragile piece. But Nathan's father wasn't done. One morning, a process server knocked on their door, delivering a lawsuit. Nathan's father was suing for defamation, claiming their public story had damaged his reputation and business. The amount was staggering millions, a number meant to intimidate. Ethan's stomach sank as he read the papers. The legal jargon, a cold reminder of their vulnerability. He's trying to break us, Nathan said, his voice steady but his eyes dark with worry. He knows we can't afford this. Ethan nodded, his mind racing. They'd come so far, but this felt like a wall they couldn't climb. We need help, he said. Legal help. Media help. Anything. Lily, ever their champion, connected them with a pro bono lawyer, a sharp woman named Clara who specialized in civil rights cases. This is harassment, Clara said, scanning the lawsuit. Your father's throwing his weight around, but he's got no case. We'll countersue if we have to. Her confidence was a lifeline, but the battle was far from won. As the legal fight loomed, Ethan and Nathan leaned on their community. The nonprofit threw a fundraiser, drawing supporters who'd read their story. Strangers sent messages of encouragement, some sharing their own stories of coming out, of fighting for love. It was humbling, a reminder that their struggle was bigger than them. The turning point came unexpectedly. Nathan's mother, who'd been silent since the wedding, reached out. She met them at a quiet cafe, her face lined with regret. I was wrong, she said, her voice trembling. I let your father control everything, including you. I don't want to lose you, Nathan. She looked at Ethan, her eyes soft. Or you. You make my son happy. Nathan's throat tightened, and he reached for her hand. Mom, I just want to be myself. Can you accept that? She nodded, tears falling. I'm trying. I want to. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start, a crack in the wall Nathan's father had built. With Claire's help, they fought the lawsuit. Evidence of Nathan's father's intimidation tactics, texts, emails, even recorded threats piled up, weakening his case. The media caught wind, and soon, his father's reputation, not theirs, was under fire. By spring, the lawsuit was dismissed, and Nathan's father, humiliated, retreated. Ethan and Nathan stood stronger, their love tempered by the fight. They weren't naive, prejudice lingered, and not everyone accepted them, but they had each other. And that was enough. One evening, as they walked through a snowy Boston park, Nathan stopped, pulling Ethan close. "Marry me," he said, his breath visible in the cold air. "Not today, not tomorrow, but someday, when we're ready." Ethan laughed, his heart full. "Someday," he agreed, kissing Nathan under the falling snow. The world had laughed at them, judged them, tried to break them, but they'd fought back. And in the end, love won, not with grand gestures, but with quiet, stubborn hope. Their story wasn't just theirs anymore. It was a beacon for others, a reminder that truth, spoken bravely, could change everything. As they walked home, hand in hand, Ethan knew they'd face more battles. But together, they were unstoppable.